stern. Emergency warp speed.
Forward shields.
Impact.
The truth is, I wished that Star Trek had more resources when they were making the show, because it felt like they were so clearly limited by the amount of time and money that they had.
We knew that if we were going to do this, we had to really kind of pull out all the stops. To really make it like kind of an event. To make it big. A spectacle.
So one of the things that we look to bring to this version of Star Trek is imbuing it with a certain type of energy and spectacle that, for many reasons, mostly, I think, honestly, resources, they've never been able to have before.
Buckle up.
Damon and I were kind of the Trek guys, and now it's actually Alex and JJ who said, what can we learn from Star Wars here?
As sacrilegious as it is to even bring, bring that up in relation to Trek, but I think that the key is that, a modern audience is going to be already attuned to a much faster-paced movie. And Trek, in its best forms, was always submarine warfare. It's like underwater warfare.
Their weapon takes all their energy. They must become visible in order to launch it. Our phasers ready?
I didn't want to sort of impose a Star Wars tone on Star Trek. But there was a certain kind of pace that Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi had that I just thought that was the pace that I loved.
I always think of it as Star Trek as beautiful classical music and Star Wars as rock and roll. And it felt like Star Trek needed a little bit more rock and roll to connect to a modern audience.
And Paramount stepped up and they said, we understand what you want to do, and we're on board.
The other thing that was great was that JJ always acknowledged that he was going to require his support team around him to make the vision work.
In some form. And he's sitting back at the end. His father will come down. We'll be on Spock. He'll look up and see his father coming towards him. And when we do overs, they're sitting on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
We cheat this direction for the overs.
Right.
So they're in the intersection of this.
Great.
So it's like they're just sitting in the middle of this intersection of this stuff.
That's great.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah. That's good.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
It's my favorite thing. I'm in the middle of Vulcan. Vulcan, I say. The thing is that I like to be collaborative during the process, so I'm often asking anyone who will listen, what do you think?
Told him I thought he was insane when he called up.
Tommy Gormley, best AD ever.
Standing by for incoming torpedoes.
Incoming? Incoming.
Shh. I thought he was off his head. I think it's such an iconic program, and to make something new of it and to reinvent it, it's such an incredible challenge. But he's a very brave man.
Is it possible to build any piece to do a reverse if we want to, for example, say, open the movie with this scene? Which is a whole notion. So turn the floor over to Scott Chambers.
No doubt. What has JJ brought to Star Trek? JJ. Which is huge. Excitement and enthusiasm and energy like crazy.
If you were over there, and we kind of got down to hide that road.
Yep. We have the same sort of taste when it comes to making great images, and I like the relaxed way that he works.
JJ is a maverick filmmaker. There's no denying that. He's a great storyteller. He understands the technical side of movies.
I've done Mission Impossible with JJ, and I felt we had when you work with people, obviously it's a sort of a collaboration. If you're doing a long shoot and you're coming to work every day with somebody, he's a great guy to be working with, because he's got a great sense of humor.
How lame does that look at what we're doing?
Looks pretty weird.
Roger, I love it.
He's a very dynamic person. He's very smart, and he's a lot of fun to work with. He brought back a lot of the same crew.
key to this movie for me from the very beginning was, how do we make this real? Not how do we disregard it, how do we change it, but how do we make the spectacle feel real?
More than anything, we wanted to ground the adventure of the crew in some kind of reality.
And part of that was I wanted to not have everything be green screen and CG.
But our mantra always was in the film, if there's any way of doing it in camera, doing it for real, we do it.
He wants to get as much real in camera as he possibly can. It's very old school.
There's just kind of a tangibleness that you need. Like if everything's all done on green screens, it's not present.
Even if you're creating something for Star Trek, you know, you're not doing the visual effect for its own sake. If you can root it in some kind of level of reality, I think you've got more chance of success.
I've got half of a list of things that I thought needed from Architecture, so could I work on that down there today and then have a play meeting tomorrow? Or... Oh, the play meeting is tomorrow at 10 a.m. Okay. Yeah.
When I read the script at first, your first impression is, because it's a film set in the future, it's science fiction, it will be entirely on the stage.
Very early on when we were scouting, I realized by the number of hours we were spending in the scout van that we weren't going to be on stage that much.
Then when he pulls over, we're getting a camera view over behind the cop. Yeah.
The movie was going to be about 80% stage and 20% location. It was probably 60% stage and 40% location. And to JJ's credit, what he wanted to do was open up the movie and give it a real, quote-unquote, vastness to it.
And we just go wham, and then we know that we'll be getting over the mountains where we need to and putting a massive ship right there. It's kind of fantastic.
This is the other potential spot for the shuttle. It's in this bay here. Just need JJ to sign off on which one he prefers.
And the idea was, instead of doing it all on stages, it was like, where can we shoot where things feel practical and real?
Clearly there are a lot of visual effects in this movie when you get into space, but there's no reason that once you get inside something, you can't use the real thing.
Oh, this is cool.
I think it was a genius thing to do for the film, because there's something indefinable about filming on a real location, which I'm convinced comes across in the finished piece. It's got a reality which, no matter how wonderful sets are, is really hard to replicate and capture.
The thing we talked about most was to give it a big cinema screen feel in the John Ford sense. And so we shot it on film and we shot it anamorphic.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
There's just a lot of pressure these days to shoot using digital cameras. We just felt that the organic nature of the film with the widescreen format would allow us another degree of realism.
JJ, you know, as I do, actually love the anamorphic format because it does have imperfections and it does create a kind of a grittiness that you might not get from just shooting digitally.
In an anamorphic film such as this, you get a lot of distortion, you know, and warping.
Anamorphic lenses halate when light is shone at them directly, and we loved those flares.
Nice flare. Nice flare. The flare's good. How's your flare gun?
Dan and the lighting guys would be off on the edge of frame with, you know, flashlights pointing them back into the lens.
Although some people do try very hard to take them out, we tried very hard to let them in.
What's better than flares?
Shorts.
See? Isn't that better? That's better than that. That's better than that.
All of those things are part of the kind of vocabulary of creating this kind of more realistic kind of look.
And we were very careful to try to mimic that same look. And we were careful to go back in and put all that stuff back into the CG stuff. This is one of the hero shots, and we tried to sort of mimic what the anamorphic lenses do. So as the lights come in, you'll see these weird, they're artifacts essentially, and the light streaks down the side of the ship. Here you can see, you know, once it gets really bright, sort of illuminating dust or, you know, crap that was on the lens, you know, affectionately referred to as lens schmutz. And then the blue line flares come on throughout the film. So here's a clean ship, no flaring, you know, it's pretty lifeless. So all the lens flares and lens aberrations that we add, viewing the film, you know, the average viewer would look at it and they wouldn't necessarily pick up on that stuff, but if it was absent and it wasn't in there, then you would miss it, and it gives the same life that we had in the principle of photography.
You see, my purpose is not simply to avoid the destruction of the home that I love, but to create a Romulus that exists free of the Federation. Yeah. And only then we should be truly safe.
Then we have nothing left to discuss.
You know, JJ is a great magician, actually. He loves the, you know, these kind of visual tricks.
Starfleet chose Earth as its center.
And I love that about JJ, is that it's that kind of that old Hollywood mentality, is that there's magic to movies, and JJ loves the magic of it.
If there's any way of doing it in camera, doing it for real, we'd do it.
Did you hear him talking like he's our dad? That's not even his car you're watching. That's Dad's car.
And we did that to a massive extent, even to go back to old technologies like using miniatures or matte shots, things which aren't used greatly anymore.
V90, take 2.
Sound speed. I can think of a couple of examples. One would be silly things, you know, like when Spock goes in the turbo lift.
3, 2, 1, doors!
We just started with Spock on the bridge with a green screen behind him. He walks into the turbo lift, you pretend he's traveling, the doors open, and now he's back on the bridge. I mean, he was already on the bridge. We just photographed another background, and for the first moment, we put that behind him, and it looks as though he's gone from one place, traveling the turbo lift, into the bridge. But in truth, he actually started on the bridge, you know. So that's the kind of visual trick that he enjoys, and it's a lot of fun, really.
I want to do one of those classic Star Trek shots where everyone sort of lurches to one side, and yeah, it'll feel stupid, but it'll look really good. So I'm going to call out 3, 2, 1, boom. Now on boom, if everyone can move this direction, roll cameras. Here we go, and light, and 3, 2, 1, boom. 3, 2, 1, buck. 2, 1, buck. Buck. That's gonna be the greatest thing in cinema history.
Or the endless camera shaking. It's a very special technique to the camera shaking.
And cut.
And the whole feeling of them should be that the whole world is shaking and moving. It's JJ's invention.
Away! I can't promise anything! Do it! Do it! Do it! If we eject
JJ's got this frequency, I don't know where it comes from, but he's the only guy that can really do it.
I'm an amateur, I'm a kind of white belt, and JJ's a black belt at it, but he's even he gets tired doing it. So I'm one of the few trustees who he thinks has got vaguely the right rhythm. It's incredibly exhausting. I can't explain to someone how hard it is.
Lights and parachute. Cut, great.
Cut, thank you. Well done, John.
Play that, please. Last one.
It's really interesting to see him actually do that. So we were thinking we're going to have to sort of replicate that in some way, but we didn't want a computer to do it because it wouldn't be organic enough. You know, the way JJ does it, he gets so many random sort of kicks and bumps in there that, and it does look very cool. So we tried it in motion capture by having a little motion capture sensor on a tripod hooked up to the camera inside the computer and actually tap the desk, and it would wobble the sensor on the little tripod. Actually worked out great.
JJ, obviously being a fan of cinema, knew that if you have a smaller set, you put a kid in a costume that matches, and suddenly the set looks, you know, 1.5 times as big.
So here's the idea, is that you guys are like guards at a prison. So if you could just be really, just walk very seriously and very straight, okay? Okay, you walk on this side, and you walk on this side, okay? Good to go? All right. That's right, here we go.
You're doing great, kiddo.
The prison scene, which I don't believe is in the movie, but we had kids walking down a very, to be honest, a very small corridor, but by putting children in it, it looked like it was in a big corridor, you know.
Yeah, fun? Okay, so you guys, you doing all right? Are you okay to do one more?
Yeah, last one.
I think maybe one or two more. Is that okay for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can do 1 or 2.
1 or 2 more? That should be all we need. You see, I like that attitude. That is awesome. All right. That's right. Here we go.
You're doing great, kiddo. Again, you know, we had a child playing Kirk at Delta Vega when he runs into the cave. There's only one shot that I think really features the kid.
Solo!
We'd spent weeks hanging guys upside down and shooting into the sky. And after about 15 seconds, people start to pass out and the blood rushes to their head, and it's incredibly complex and difficult. It had never occurred to me to try an old-fashioned trick as you stand on a mirror and you look down, the reflection's the sky, and it looks like you're looking into the sky. JJ thought of it.
That's good. Let's do that.
It worked incredibly well.
We spent an evening shooting people spinning on the spot. And moving the lights as opposed to people on wires, and shot against mirrors as opposed to green screen, and came up with a completely usable piece of the sequence that came from improvising on the spot.
3,500 meters.
We hadn't sat and planned to use a mirror that day. I was very excited to see that actually that worked. It saved us massive amount of time and effort, and it was a very elegant solution to a problem we had.
I think those are kind of very seamless and simple ideas, but they're a lot of fun to execute.
Yeah, beautiful. Got it. That's done.
Okay.
That was great. You feel good? For any weird reason, do you want to do that again?
All kinds of reasons.
That was fantastic. I think we're good with that. Yeah.
Well tried.
Beautifully done. I mean, we did 14 of them, for God's sake. I'd happily do a 15th, but I thought we needed it. That was beautiful.
J.J. Abrams has something that's quite unique. There are directors who have the talent for great big action and production values and so forth. And there are directors who have a talent for very intimate moments between human beings. And a lot of directors don't have both. They can do one or the other very, very well. And J.J. can do both, and that's what makes him special. Jim?
Excuse me?
I'm a J.J. fan, big time. So I think his youth and his energy and his positivity and his smile and his joy of filmmaking comes through this movie 100%.
Aslan, I'm going to give you a mild sedative.
I wish I didn't know you.
Don't be such an infant.
You tried.
Unbelievable.
Cut. That was good.
JJ is a life force behind this film. He's kind of like the kid in the candy store. He's like, you know, I can't believe we're getting to do this, and isn't this cool?
Oh, it's so beautiful.
In. You like that?
What's better than that? Can I see it again? That was fantastic. That was excellent. That was great. Look at that shot, so good. First of all, everything about it's good.
Okay.
First of all, look at that.
Yeah, and he swings.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
it's
okay.
great.
Yeah.
He has so much fun doing what he loves to do, and that infects you.
I can't imagine anybody else directing this movie, honestly. I can't imagine being so infused with excitement and enthusiasm for what we're doing on the same level as I am with JJ.
And as well as that, films this size are incredibly pressurized, but he manages to maintain his humanity at all times. He's a very nice man and very kind and generous and warm-hearted.
Yeah, you got it twice, that's why.
This is Emily.
Was that what's happening? Medical bay. Oh, that was the second one. Was that I said what's going on instead of what was.